Yeah, I don't have a password. Try it. Unless I'm typing it, I hope I'm not typing it. I wish I could see it. About 4 times.
To the red light, you're on. You get red light. It's like Kmart, red light special.
B. Sullivan at Lock Borders. I just can't see your password.
Yeah. It's not
There she goes.
I've changed it, I don't know if that says what it is now.
So is that like a capital?
Capital B, capital B dot, capital S.
Okay.
That better work.
It didn't, but I might have had the wrong button. I might have
Get locked
to
out pretty soon.
Actually, what? Take my computer. Now you're not getting your
All right.
You got it?
I think so.
Your tab's locked up.
No, I turned it on just to see. It's not kicking me off.
Mike, what's your problem? Need some online pop.
I don't know if you need to log out and re-log in.
Maybe. So just hit the.
Hit the exit. Or the close button. See, we had to borrow computers from the classrooms because all these are not in charge.
To do this, so there's gonna be, here, take mine.
Hang on, what if I do that? Oh, there's the ribbon that shows up. All right.
Okay.
All right, so now what do I go to? Is it down on the bottom?
HTTPS. Okay, change that to these, just to see. Ah, see, that was it.
It's weird. Why is it a different email address? Oh, that's not my email address, but that's the.
The school is usually your initial and your last name
Okay.
at walkerlawyer.com.
Okay. All right, very good.
Hey, called me door at 6:06.
You're supposed to be your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this for the camera or is this for everybody here?
This is for everybody here.
It'll be for the camera too. Sorry. Call the meeting to order at 6:07.
Ready?
Yep.
Brett Eady,
Yes.
Bob Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Hancock,
Yes.
Di Feicher,
Yes.
Alex Shada, Renee Philmeyer.
Yes.
Can we get a motion to excuse Alex for tonight, please, in a second?
Excuse Alex.
Second. We should, we're gonna talk, like, we're all feeding each other out. So everybody shut them off. And then click on it. I know, but it's gonna be hearing feedback the whole time.
Ready?
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Renee. Yes. Brett,
Yes. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Copy of the Open Meetings Act is on the wall. On to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve as written?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda, any changes or amendments? Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Renee. Yes. Brett,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Here's a copy of the previous minutes from the previous meeting. Any questions or amendments or changes?
Do a motion to accept.
Is there a motion to accept as written?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Chris?
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Renee. Yes. Brett,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
General funds claims?
There's an E claim in there.
There is, correct. Any questions on the claims? If not, can we get a motion to approve claims with the exception of the e-law service claim?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion on any of the claims totals? Chris?
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Renee. Yes. Brett,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
We do need a motion for the e-law service claim.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Chris?
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Renee. Yes.
Abstained.
Bob.
Yes.
Informational items of treasurer report attached. Any questions associated with that? Okay. On to 4.2 policy review. Brandon?
Okay, Dave, this is a little bit lengthy, so hang with me. Some of these are real small technical changes we're not going to spend a lot of time on. Some of them are going to require a little bit of discussion and a little bit of input from the board as a whole. I'm going to go through in order. It'll be a little rapid fire. You've all seen the originals from KSB. Starting with 5001, had that aligned to what we're doing as far as days, changed 5 days to 7 days in the final paragraph. Also added within the funeral as an excused absence, family member funeral, and then deleted vacation. In 5003, this is applications for exempt schools, which are essentially home schools. What happened here is they changed statutes, so any exempt school student would be eligible for extracurricular participation as long as they took one class, 5 credits per semester. Set the dates for application of those exempt school students at December 1st and May 1st, basically give them a month ahead of time. With December 1st, a month before the start of the second semester, May 1st, a month before the end of the second semester. This changed with statute. It's something we have to do. We just arbitrarily can decide what date that we put in there. Policy committee, please interrupt me at any time. 5004, this is option enrollment. Special education requires individual consideration. In the past, we've set a cap on how many students we can enroll in special education. We still set that numeric value, but for every option enrollment paperwork that we get, special education involved, Shelley's going to have to individually consider the discuss and then have a written response as to why we did not accept it if we don't. So it becomes a little more work intensive.
Brandon, for
Yes.
purposes of the video, should we have you?
Oh, I suppose. I can talk.
That way,
Okay.
I'm guessing with
Scoot over
the.
here.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one, 5006, simply changed board to administration. 5012, it had wording in there that at the July meeting, we'd get it updated, the board would be updated. Change that verbiage to say at a regular board meeting. Typically, we do that in January, as long as we have all the data back from NDE. This year, I think it was February, because we're waiting on some numbers. As long as it's at a regular meeting, then we're in compliance with our policy. 5015, this is going to require a little bit of conversation here. This is protection of students' data, I believe, sensitive surveys. The list that is included on the attachment in 5015 comes directly from NDE. You'll see in 1B3, originally it said sexual behavior or attitudes. Committee recommended sexual orientation, gender identity, sexual behavior or attitudes towards sexual activity. There were two other pieces. Committee member wanted added in there as parts 9 and 10. Did not put them in there yet, saying it'd be discussed at the board meeting. The only feedback that I got from Bobby is straying from the NDE list, the direct list, could, not will, but could pose a problem if we got a federal audit because there's specific language they look for. Even if it was more restrictive, even if we were doing above and beyond what we had to do, it could pose a problem in that audit. Not saying that it will. Anybody want to add anything, committee members?
Yeah, I was the one that wanted potentially the other language, I think, dealt with abortion and, I think, I don't remember what else it was, but, just because they're talking about sensitive issues, I thought we'd add probably the most sensitive issues possible today, and those are the sensitive issues, so.
And I've got that pulled.
Okay.
I've got that pulled up. So 9 was, let me find it again. Use of birth control, condoms and/or attitudes regarding abortion. 10 was racial discrimination or discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity or expression.
From my perspective, I just think we stick with the list that's prescribed. I think there's a whole lot of areas that have sensitive information. This list as prescribed, even without the changes, I think is pretty comprehensive, and there are a lot of things that could fit under these categories. I just think if we start to get super nitpicky on very specific issues, that begs the question, why aren't there other issues that could potentially be sensitive or controversial, particularly in this environment? We could have 37 pages of controversial issues. So if NDE prescribes the list, it's pretty comprehensive. I think you just stick with what our attorney's recommending and what NDE recommends.
Yeah, my thought is that if we're gonna have a list of the top 10, abortion, gender identity, sexual orientation would be the top 3 today. I mean, I don't know how old that list is from the NDE, like they predated probably the last 3 or 4 years of stuff, I would guess, I don't know. If we're gonna give people notice of sensitive information, potentially coming into school for a survey. Those things are mentioned.
I think we also have to ask the question, as a public school, when are we ever going to survey people on abortion? I just don't know why we would need the word abortion to appear anywhere in any of our policies.
Yeah.
But it
Much,
could,
yeah, it's much more likely to
what?
be.
It could be surveyed, maybe not us, but maybe from another party, like, where a survey comes in.
We have to approve of any third-party survey. They can't just survey our students. Isn't that right, Brandon? I mean, we can't just, we don't just have third parties who can randomly distribute.
Have we ever
screener or survey? Like, screener would be something academic. Sometimes there's some mental health piece to that. Typically, anything of content that's discussed in this policy would be something that we either compose or that we would certainly read before anybody would get their hands on it.
I think right up above that too, it says 1A surveys created by a third party. Letter 2, parents have the right to inspect any survey created by a third party before that survey is distributed to their student. So parents are going to see that. They can prevent that from happening.
Do they always get noticed before a survey's done?
Again, it comes back to that whole screener, survey, common language that becomes the issue. As far as third-party surveys that we've done, without Josh sitting here, I can't answer that definitively, but I don't know of any third-party surveys that we've put out. We've used screeners, certainly, but not necessarily surveys. I know Josh, and it comes up later again in policy, where Josh is putting together his schedule that we're going to publish on an annual basis. Here's every possible assessment, survey, screener, anything else that we're doing on throughout the school year, so parents are informed.
And it's not many, is it?
No,
Just like 2 or 3.
at the most.
So we get this straight. Sexual orientation, gender identity are already in there, correct? In this, as a survey request, is this in the NDA?
No.
So what's in red is number 3, right? Okay. We want to add, you guys talked about adding 9 and 10, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, did we agree to add the language in 3, or did we simply say we'll take that up tonight? So none of this is added yet.
My recollection is just a little different. I had said, and there was some language related to sexual orientation, gender identity, I think in either 9 or 10. As a compromise, I said I could be comfortable with this if that was important. So I don't have any objection to the language as currently redlined. If people felt like it was important to specifically call out that. My preference would be to, again, stick with the NDE language, but if this is important, I don't have objections to how this is written.
So number 3 actually says sexual behavior or attitudes. That's it.
From the NDE.
From the NDE. Okay, no, okay, that, you guys just put this in red because it's where you thought maybe you potential change.
That,
Okay.
yeah,
That,
that was one of the changes proposed by Bob.
okay.
I think there's an argument that sexual behavior or attitudes could be broad enough to cover those things that are already, that have been added. But again, for clarification's sake, if that's important, no objections to adding the red line language.
And the screeners are again, explain me the screeners.
So screeners would be academic screeners. We do academic screeners all the time when it comes to especially reading, vocabulary, phonics, some of those things. We also have a mental health piece that our counselors might do. While I don't have them in front of me, I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it would be any sort of red flags that might pop up in student behavior. It would be a lot more productive if we had them in here to explain exactly what all that includes.
But all those will be included in the list that was
Correct.
Brandon, who is they that you're referring to?
Guidance counselors and Josh.
And are any of these prepared by third parties?
Not to my knowledge.
So generally, we're generating our own surveys / screeners, understanding those are different.
Right, they might be modified, there may be a template where there's a third-party screener survey, something out there that they're taking in, but then they're modifying to make it our own.
So the one I'm thinking is the school climate survey that's done maybe every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's something that goes towards our accreditation. Yep,
We don't modify that, do we? Do we modify that?
that's ours,
Okay.
that's in-house.
Oh, I thought there was one that was statewide, that all schools.
So you saw one this spring that we discussed that had to do with the grant. We're not necessarily going to be able to modify that, which is why you guys wanted to look through it. There may be, and again, without Josh here, I hate speaking so definitively, but there may be pieces of it that are required statewide, but we're asking the questions we need answers to.
And so you said it's required, one of them is required for accreditation, but there's no required question. We can generate whatever we want, and that meets the requirements.
That's my understanding.
And maybe I missed it, have you sent those to us? I don't remember seeing it, but have you ever seen the survey? So how can we have seen the survey?
I will ask Josh.
Okay. Because I'm just thinking that that's something that we would have to approve before we send it out. I don't remember approving.
I don't think we're required to approve, Molly. I think this is more about parents get the opportunity to
Right, but I'm a
inspect.
parent too, and a board member.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I've never seen it.
And you
Right.
can request a copy of what the timeline, so you'll know all the screener surveys, everything. So if you want a full list of them, they'll send you.
Right.
I didn't understand.
I had one other question on this, and I don't think I mentioned it during our committee meeting, but in paragraph 4, instructional material, on page 3 or 4, I didn't know if this would include library materials. I mean, I think instructional material means stuff just in the classroom, textbooks and things like that.
There's a separate policy for library materials. Yep.
Any other points of reference on 50/15?
So my thought is, do we want to add 9 and 10, which is use of birth control condoms and or attitudes regarding abortion, and 10 would be racial discrimination or discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity or expression.
And Bob, what is your take, what is the reasoning behind 9 and 10? I just want to,
Probably because they're more hot button issues,
Okay. They are.
than they used to be. They were always hot button issues, whatever. So it's just giving the parents notice that something like that could be in a survey, so they might want to pay more attention to their child life. I suppose what I'd do is I'd move to amend it to include the language in 3, and then also include my proposed language in 9 and 10.
And right now, I just need guidance because it's a
Yeah.
discussion. This will come up next month for approval. I just need guidance from you guys. You guys tell me what you want.
Well, here's maybe what we can do. We can just include it as potential language, and then Alex will be here next month too.
yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I want to do some more thinking on this. Because that wasn't on the 9 and 10, so you didn't see it, so this is the first time I've seen it. Because they are hot topic, they are. If anybody said, I think they are crazy. So, okay.
No, they absolutely are, but what I'm saying is that there's 15 more. And so we aren't going to ever get every controversial issue. That's why the parents have the ability to get a copy of these review them, decide. Regardless of what's on this list or not on this list, parents can review them. I guess, Brandon, one thing you may know when you put those in is those are not recommended by our attorneys, that was a proposal by law. Just so when we're reviewing those, that is a reminder to us.
Next one on your hit list, Brandon.
All right, back to the little rapid fire. 5018, committee just deleted the opening paragraph altogether. 5019 talks about communication avenues for parents from the school, added in the student information system, Power School as being one of those possibilities. Hazing and initiation, separated those into hazing is prohibited, period, and then talked about initiation following that. 5033, parking lots. Initially it had in there having a speed limit for the parking lot, which in theory is not a horrible idea, but how you govern that without being able to detect speed limits, we just put it under discipline and administrative duties as far as responsible driving. 5035, these are statutory changes in student discipline. You no longer can suspend students K through 2. There is no such thing as suspension for them. It also changes timelines for communication and determinations from administration to parents and back. I believe in this part is about hearing officers, where a parent can deny the first hearing officer that the school recommends and require that we go out and find a second hearing officer, but it's got to be within a certain timeline. 5037 with Internet and Technology, change system administrator to superintendent or designee, more closely aligned to previous policies. 5044, we changed driver criteria, so it aligns with 4003, which has already been approved as far as some dates and points and those sort of things with the driver's license. 5045, just simply aligned it to what we do, putting in costs, meal prices, which haven't been approved yet. We'll do that next month, but that's what they're going to have to be because that's what's being dictated to us. Additionally, you'll see some max costs. As part of legislative change, we have to include max cost to a student. So especially when you look at, I want to say, show choir, cheer and dance, and any sort of college classes, you'll see some max values on there. That is a requirement. We obviously shoot long, so we don't put any parent in a bind. It's probably not going to cost that much, but we want to make sure that we have a max cost in there. 5049, statutory change, and simply removed the concealed carry permit for adults. Still can't bring it in the building. If it's on grounds, it's got to be in a locked box, those sort of things. Removed concealed carry since that doesn't exist. 5052 is just a statutory change with an updated date on it. 5062 is lice, louse, and nits, louse eggs. Remove nits, again, statutory change. 5063, added some clarification. Also added a section for parents and guardians as far as audio-video taping. It also changes the title and reclassifies it into the 3000s. So we'll still have to approve it, but when we approve it, we'll approve it with the 3000 number and put it under that chapter. 5064 is a required change. 5065, students not excluded with bed bugs. There were a couple options. The committee discussed it and went with not excluding them from school. 6000s. The committee has had some brief discussions on the 6000s. What I've done is I've taken a little bit of discretion, but most of it is just putting in what we do. For example, school organization by grade, that's cleaning it up, making sure that K-5 is elementary, 6-8 is middle school, 9-12 is high school. Not a lot to discuss there, but understand some of these are going to be stock policies that we still have the chance to discuss next month before having them approved. So if there is input that you have before next month, it would be nice if I could get a hold of it to include. That way we have all our information before we come back in July. 6003 simply included hours of instruction. They always existed. We just placed the number in there. 6004 deleted the schedule from policy. This is a recommendation, even though they composed the policy, it was a recommendation from Bobby to delete it, because if you were to get an audit and for some reason, either because of funds or because the staff was really happy, so you kept a curriculum an extra year, if your schedule is off in policy, then you would be in violation potentially. So we removed the schedule. Josh still has a schedule. He keeps it. He will keep you up to date. It just won't exist in policy. 6005, we put our requirements in there. 6006, with graduation, incomplete students will not participate. That's what we've always done. 6007, classified senior recognition from valedictorian, salutatorian to top 10%. 6008, inserted the strength of schedule for weighted grades. Language from Mr. Galladay. 6014, what we've done in the past is if you're here half a day, you can participate, practice, or competition, whatever that extracurricular is. So we put the language in there 4 hours, must be in school 4 hours. I think the original had, if you're gone at any time, then you can't participate. 6015, removed subbing that grade for a failing grade. You still get credit, but you can't take summer school and all of a sudden boost your GPA on a retake on something that's not in your classroom. You'll get the credit, but the grade still exists in your GPA calculation. 6017.
Brandon, can I ask a quick question?
You bet.
On that? If somebody got ill or in an accident or something and they were not able to complete a class, what do they get incomplete for that? And are they allowed to finish the work?
Correct. That'd go to incomplete, and then that'd be discretion of the administration.
So that's not what we're talking about
No,
here.
we're talking about somebody that has failed a class that is trying to regain credit. 6017, you guys can tell me what you think here. All I did was eliminate the statement on Wednesday nights. Again, that was me taking discretion. If you want it left in there, we definitely can leave it in there, but I just didn't want to skip over it.
That's no confirmation night at my church, so it's kind of nice.
Is that consistent with our practice?
As far as?
Do teachers try to keep homework to a minimum on Wednesdays? I can't say I personally have noticed that with my own students.
Right.
Is that something we're currently following?
I don't think so, but I can't say that, again, definitively without being in the classrooms. I feel like we're pretty cognizant as a district when it comes to homework and not being terribly overburdensome night after night after night. Whether it's consistently not on Wednesday or not, I don't know.
Okay, so no directive to that effect, and that's not currently in our policy.
I kind of like the idea of having it in there. I mean, the intent is to give families the opportunity for their church night or their family night activities in the middle of the week. I mean, do we have a policy where we try not to schedule athletic events and practices on Wednesday night?
We say they have, well, we don't schedule Wednesday nights, and the practice has to be done at 6, I think. Okay, the only question that I would have in contradiction to this would be, well, not homework. If you're giving a test on Thursday and you have to study Wednesday nights, would that also qualify as homework?
And I've never seen the policy. I've seen the policy regarding sports. I've never seen a policy regarding homework. So,
But again, I didn't want to skip over it because it was in the stock policy.
I think the biggest goal is sports practice.
As is here, with the red line or without?
Without the language.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Just about done here. 60-25,
60-33.
okay. I don't know why I have 60-25 because I don't have a note.
I do have a question on 60-25 at that flight.
Okay.
Do we have a policy for classroom cell phone use? Are teachers just at what, their
So-
discretion? or-
Yep, that's something we discussed this summer during our administrative retreat. Teachers, we are not allowing personal cell phone use for students. We're not supposed to allow cell phone use for students in the classroom. Some teachers have activities that may or may not require it. But what we talked about is not necessarily, for example, you have shoe hangers, or you have stickers on the desk or something. My big thing is it not being a distraction during class time and it not leaving the classroom during class time. I don't care if it's a shoe hanger, if it's a sticker, somewhere where it's visible that the teacher knows it exists and that the student leaves it there for the period. That's what we discussed this summer administratively. Now, the next piece of that is going to be followed through administratively into the classrooms. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep. Oh, never mind. Nope. 60-33. That is restraint and seclusion. Shelley recommended option C. That's the least restrictive. I asked her about that. That's what we do currently. We don't do mechanical restraints. She recommended option C. Seems safest. Okay. 60-34 with, I'm guessing, yeah, concussions. That's the training that we currently use. You'll see some of them crossed out. We use the one training. That's what we go forward with. I talked to Mr. Berry about it. 60-37. This requires a little bit of discussion here. This is the library and media. Kind of three options that they put forth would be either principal or superintendent individual administrative review on any sort of selection. You have a committee review, or you have a board committee review, which they put in there as discouraged but lawful.
Do we currently have a curriculum?
We have a curriculum committee. They don't meet often, I would say, though.
None of the board members are on that, right?
Yeah.
I'm on.
I think
You're on, okay.
Di
I
and
meet with
Brett.
Josh Thursday.
Which meeting?
Right. Not my book. Right.
Brandon, our current policy is principal or superintendent, right?
At this time, yeah.
I support continuing with that.
I like having a curriculum committee, because if there's any concern in the community, they're going to come to the board meeting. And it'd be good to have people on the board that are part of that decision or can speak about it. So that makes more sense. In the decision making, if somebody questions the materials.
Would agree with that.
Yeah, why did they discourage it? What is the
I did not ask specifically as we went through the options. He just said they discouraged it.
But it's legal, it's lawful.
Lawful.
maybe just ask him for a little clarification on
From my perspective, I think the principals and superintendents are more focused in on the educational mission of the school. I think individual board members bring their various views, and I think the superintendent and the principal are just better tuned into the educational needs of our students.
Yeah, I don't disagree that they are. As a board member, they're still coming to me if there's a problem. So having a board presence on that committee makes perfect sense to me.
So So just to clarify then, obviously the committee doesn't get to make any decisions, correct? They simply get to make a recommendation to the school board,
Correct.
because I would not be comfortable with that.
And I will clarify with Bobby exactly when it comes to that, because we're talking option 3 at this point, correct?
Yeah, and who else is on the committee? Is it just Brett, you and Di, or who's on the?
Brett and I.
Just Brett and Di, okay.
I mean, I'm a part of it, but I'm not a committee member.
Okay. But we could add like the curriculum director and
Correct.
like that to the committee. Yeah.
Okay. With handbooks, understand they are lengthy. The staff or the student handbook and activity handbook will be combined into one document, because if they're not in one document, you have to list the 1009 policy individually in both, which is 30-some pages. So we're going to put it back to back as it exists now. I got some formatting issues, that's why you don't see it here tonight. But the handbooks are going to mirror what policy says, or in the absence of policy, what we are currently doing. You're not going to see any big changes outside of what is discussed through this policy journey in the handbooks. And I do see that 6025 is at the bottom. Oh, in the highlighted piece, it talks about students who violate the policy may have their cell phones or electronic devices confiscated immediately. Administration will return confiscated device to the parent or guardian after meeting with parent or guardian. I think that's where my question came up. Within policy, do you want it stated that parent or guardian has to obtain it and meet? Or does it just go back to the student at the end of the day?
Well, whatever we do, we have to follow.
Correct.
And we're not. I can tell you that right now, we're not.
Correct.
Some teachers may, some people don't. So we can, whatever policy we put in place, man, it doesn't really matter if we don't follow what's in the policy. Because I'm reading what the policy is now, we're not following it. So I think this is a little much after. So you're saying the first violation, you have to have the parents come. There's got to be more, for 1, 2, 3 strikes is gone. Parents have to come. I just think the first time, what are other school districts doing?
I think you see everything from nothing to what's written here.
Now, at the meeting in November, I went to the one on, I think it was Student Voices or something. It was right toward the end of the day. And they had about 8 students from across the state talk about the good things that they experienced. That they were all seniors, or maybe they were seniors. 3 of like the 8 students talked about the no cell phone policy at their school and how much pressure it took off of all of them to have. They're not allowed to have their cell phones in school again. They put in the car. So that wouldn't make me any friends if we did something like that, but it'd be something interesting to explore. And probably go back to that breakout session from the state meeting and see who those students were. I might remember who they were for something. Touch base with those schools and see if that was one student's impression and the others hate it, or if that's kind of a consensus
Right.
in school. Because it makes a lot of sense to have a lot less distraction during the school day. And if they have to take it to class, to do that exercise thing, and they go get it.
I would be concerned from a safety perspective. I mean, that's the reality of the world we live in, active shooter. I want my kid to have her phone in the classroom.
We're allowed parents to.
I know, I think
There's a lot of communication.
Yeah.
Maybe they leave for work early and they forgot to tell their kid about practice, this game, maybe we gotta do this, that.
And then they'd have to look up the phone number for the office at the
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. And so many groups are on the line. And it's just a quick text, hey, practice is now 4:30, practice is now 5:30, hey, it's canceled. You got a kid missing the bus because they thought they were going to a sporting event or wanted to play something.
Mike, are you suggesting like for first strike, you let the kid pick it up at the office at the end of the day?
Yeah, second strike. Second strike, you might not get it till the end of the day from school. Third strike, parents come in, have a conversation.
I would support that. I would hate to have to come in on the first strike. But
That's what I'm
certainly-
thinking too, is because they're all kids.
Yeah,
You take it once from them, they're going, oh, they're serious. Second time, you don't see it at all. I just think, from a teacher standpoint, if you have distraction in your class, sometimes the cell phone's great because you keep that kid maybe they don't want to be there, distracted. He gets to use his phone. But for other kids, put it in the sleep, we're there to learn. If they want to between classes want to look, like you said, the Remind app and see them, because I don't know, I just, if we're going to do something, let's do it as a district as a whole. Every teacher follows the rule, everybody does it. Because one teacher does it, the other one doesn't, it doesn't work very well. I just think whatever we're going to do, let's make sure we follow the policy, district-wide with all the kids, the teachers, and everybody.
That's just right, to be more lax, let's say the first two, the teacher just gives it back to them at the end of the day. And that way, you know, hey, I screwed up, I forgot. The second one, I really gotta focus because next time it's going to the office.
Well, because I think first, right now, you can bring in a class, I use one that has the sleeves. You put them all in sleep. Well, so-and-so, you get caught, doesn't have it, you just take it. You say, no, you don't get it the rest of the school day. Second offense, you don't get it the whole day. You understand? Third offense, mom, dad, or Paul, we go talk. And at that point, you might lose your privileges to even have it.
But for sure, there needs to be tiers.
Yeah,
I agree.
otherwise it's not
Like
something
that.
that even be enforced. I mean, you
Yeah.
have a math parent that had to come down on the first strike, teacher.
Second offense, you maybe contact the parent, teacher contacts the parents, that's the second offense.
Maybe talk to Ed.
I wouldn't mind, just don't make me come down again.
Not the first time, but the third
Until the
time.
third.
Yeah,
I'll be on board with the third,
I agree.
but I'm too busy on the first and second.
Then you talk to Ed and see what they can get. Brandon, maybe talk to admin and maybe ask faculty what they're comfortable with and maybe they can majority can get on board. What do you think?
It's going to be more directed this year.
On that, I'll introduce-
Thanks for sticking with me. I know it's a lot. We're
Yeah,
almost
right.
there.
Administrative reports, nada.
Reports in the summer, just me. Just me, a couple things. First off, LB 705 passed. It's a combination of more than 20 different bills. I've got the list of different bills that are included in it. They all impact education. I'm not sure they all align as common purposes, but that went through. The other piece is school finance. There's 3 bills that compose school finance this year, 818, 583, and 243. 243 is going to be something different that we're going to have to discuss this fall. What it does is, so we have a levy limit. We know we can't exceed the $5 between our general fund and building fund. We also have a budget limit that the LC2 puts on us, saying that in general expenditures can't exceed this, though special grants and special education and some of those things are outside that limit. Now they've added a third portion that says property tax across general fund and special building fund can't exceed 3% from the previous year. We're going to see more state aid that comes in due to the per pupil count and some sped reimbursement, but that special education reimbursement we won't see for a couple of years because it's in arrears. But what it says is 3% will be the standard. You can't exceed your tax asking more than 3%, though it can go to 6% with the supermajority of the board, which is 5 out of 6 in our case, impacting the general fund and special building fund. Where I see this potentially coming up is maybe with special building fund in the future. As you see valuations go up, what we've done in the past is we maintain that 14 cents in our building fund, knowing that we're paying for a project. We might be limited by our tax asking due to valuation increases where we can't get to 14%, or 14 cents, sorry. It's gonna be 6% between the two combined. And if we're hiring new staff, as we add people, that's gonna have to be a consideration as well. So there's 3 limiting factors, and we'll talk more about that in the fall when it comes up. Last thing I got on there, Trailblazer Conference will be at 8 schools next year. Ashland Greenwood joins as an official member, and there'll be 8 of us. That's what I got. Right.
Okay, communications, I didn't have anything attached, so I'm assuming you're ready. Audience comments? Hearing none. Board committee reports, any committees meet? Foundation, Head Start did not. Also did. Yeah, we're not talking about that, I talked about that enough the last 3 months. Yes, we did, it was enjoyable. Action items, we are to MCL. It's almost ready. Water? No. Water.
Hi guys, been a while. Nice to see you. I don't know, Brandon, have you been distributing these updates, so?
I send the 5-week look ahead.
Okay, so monthly I'm sending these.
The monthly that I post on.
Okay.
So as you send them
You
to
might have
me.
seen some of this is from last week, I added some photos. When we get a little bit more done, we'll do some drone flights over the site, monthly at least. And then we'll have this, they call it open space, where it's basically a 360-degree camera. We walk through the site, the building, and takes pictures and stuff, I'll be able to share, so. It'll get a little bit better as we move along the line as far as the updates go, but basically, what we've been doing out there, bus parking rocks been placed completed, you guys have seen that, I'm sure. In the last month, we placed 50,000 square feet of sod at the practice field, so been watering that pretty heavily, getting the sod established. Looks like we lost some in the corner as I was walking out there today. We're gonna seed mat the dirt that's area that's left. Ongoing, probably side swap in the corner, just to get that established and ready for practice, so. We're gonna install the goalpost over there, working on a guy that can do that for me. And then the permanent irrigation, so currently we're watering with basically a giant sprinkler that is pulled back and forth on the hydrant. I think we have the information from the designers that we're waiting on. I'm working with the sprinkler contractor to design the kind of heads we need. We'll probably feed that system off the hydrant that's over in the corner, because the new water line doesn't come for a while, so. Hopefully in the next month we can get the irrigation in, don't spend so much time taking the water out there. That's kind of the goal. The storage shed that goes over by the bus parking, that pricing was gathered and approved by BVH this morning, so that's in Raymond, so we'll probably see that pretty soon. So that includes the 20 by 24 storage shed, moving all the electrical stuff inside, adding a heater in there, and a bunch of other stuff, so. Once we get approval on that, we'll pull the trigger for that slab. At the addition area, basically all the site demo is complete. There's a little bit to do in that north parking lot. We got a trench across. Most of the storm sewer has been demoed. Working on rerouting some of the things we found that are different from the drawings to keep water out of the site. Right now, basically we plugged up some manholes when it rains. Some of the roof drains from the existing building, fill a manhole, we pump it out. When it rains really hard, it overflows, and you might look down there and see the lake the whole time. So basically, the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we've been pumping water off the corner of the site. That just happens in construction. If we get it dried out again, I'm gonna have it graded so that the water runs off a little better. We're going better temps, so we should get that right now. But as hasn't really affected us much yet. We do footings in that area in the next couple of weeks, so before we get dry. We've had our initial building layout obviously done, and then all the rebar and bolts, heavy casting beds were delivered in time for foundations to start in the morning or two. What's going on right now? Richter's got about 2 weeks of rough grading left out there, so dirt work's gonna be on for I think 6 or 7 weeks. Got a couple weeks left. Most of that dirt's been moved. It's really taking shape out there. They just finished the new parking lot, which is northwest of the building. It's basically just upgrade now, so you can see how that's gonna look. They're working on installing some temporary construction roads throughout the site for us to put rock down, so we're not headed in the rain, especially when we precast the cranes going, so. Over excavation at the gym footprint is actually done. I put this together last week, but that's actually done, so. We had to dig 4 feet below bottom of footing in the gym area, just because the soils and the loads in that area. It's basically got an 8-foot hole, down for the entire footprint of the gym. We dig out, work that soil, and then bring it back in. That's all done now. So foundations are ongoing, and the 50% surcharge is in place. So anywhere that gets 3 or more feet of fill along the addition, so we're bringing that grade up 3 feet, we have to put 50% of that height, a dirt pile on it to let that compress the soils. So that's in place. We put a settlement plate in the corner that we just fill, which is 6 feet. The testing company comes out, takes readings of that plate. So it's been there a week now. They'll come out this week and take a reading. Hopefully it doesn't move much. We get a couple steady readings, we can let dirt off. Thompson Construction had a meeting with them this afternoon. They're going to start mobilizing and start some of the new storm sewer and sanitary installation around the outside of the building. And like I talked about earlier, a lot of temp roads are going to be coming in. It's basically rock roads that we get around, so we're not affected that rain.
Can I ask a couple quick questions?
You bet.
On the permanent irrigation and that storage shed, are those currently carried as allowance items?
The irrigation is not. There's basically, well, there kind of is. There's a big $450,000 landscaping allowance. We'll use that to take care of the irrigation portion inside.
And then the storage shed is just an allowance?
So we had $30,000 for the storage shed, so the price that I sent to Brandon is whatever's in excess of that, $30,000 to carry. So the building got bigger, electrical moved in, there's more to it than what we originally planned for that $30,000. I did take about $5,000 over the $30,000. So yeah, we do have allowances for those.
So I'm going to interrupt real quick. This comes to the board with something like that where it's come in over what was allowed. The committee consider, the whole board consider, how do you want to go about me telling Brian, yeah, go ahead, let's do this?
Well, it'll require a change order anytime we exceed an allowance. What was, our minutes should have very clear direction on
It was
that.
25,000 or less is the committee's decision,
Over,
right? Yes.
yes. It's a committee.
Oh, yeah, 25 or over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had already, I thought we already settled that out.
Yeah,
no,
I can't
it's-
remember
yeah,
what was agreed
right.
upon.
It's basically, this would be treated, even though it's an overage of allowance, it'd be treated as any other change. This is $5,000 rather than there's a change for your parameters.
Right, that's what they're going to be committee.
Wait on an answer.
Yeah, that's why we had to come to committee approach.
Yeah.
Anything else? There's some shots of the practice field, just a week or two after it was laid, 2 weeks, I think. Here's where we lost some. I think it's getting maybe a little water in this corner, so we're gonna put some. Otherwise, it's establishing and looking pretty good out there. I think it's about ready for its first mow. I'm gonna have the guys in the pond and seed and mat in the areas, look at the sod areas, and make a recommendation for me. That's looking pretty good, so shaping up. Here's some shots of foundation. Per usual in my projects, the first time we open a hole and get ready to pour foundation, it rains like crazy. So we were able to get that pour in, but it dumped rain about 2.5 inches right after we poured it. So all's good there though. fought it out on the rain, we got it done. We had to get creative, get concrete trucks out of the site, that worked out good too. Here's a shot kind of showing kind of what's in the foundations. These plates you see are for the precast panels. When they come sit, they'll have plates embedded in them, and then the weld actually takes place to that. Right there. Anchor bolts for steel columns being placed. So concrete guys have been doing really good. They shoot everything in with GPS, coordinated stuff. I've only found 2 indents that they accidentally put off, so we've adjusted those in the precast. Everything's going really good on the foundation side. Same guys tie all the rebar gauges and place cements, and you can see pretty extensive rebar in the corners. Those guys have been doing really well with the foundations. The inside, what you see in this pink stuff is just really good installation that occurs on the inside. Some more shots. Here's where the rebar is sticking up. Is basically where we have CMU walls that sit over that rebar. There'll be additional rebar that sits in the CMU, but you'll see that throughout. There's not a ton of CMU here, but that's what those are. Here's us buttoning up the gym hole that we created. So kind of the final push and compaction of the footprint of the gym when we lifted that overhead stuff. Here's kind of where we are on footage, just to give you an idea. So we kind of started, this was the first night that we did. They've been here 2.5 weeks, I think, and I've gotten all these in, so they're doing really good. The surcharge that's placed right now kind of sits here and this way. We did leave the elevator bit there a little bit, so they're going to go over there and start working on the elevator bit. So that's all kind of done in area G, and then currently, so here's existing CTE classrooms. They're getting these out right now. So moving along pretty good on the foundation. These guys have been doing great. So more footings to come. Hopefully we can feel that surcharge and kind of get that grade. And then our first precast is scheduled to show up first week of August. So July will be kind of more of the same from foundations front. Grades low right towards the end of July. We'll start going vertical in August. So it's looking pretty good.
Hey Brian, will you send me those pictures
You bet.
later? Thank
Yeah.
you.
So you feel like you're on schedule?
We are. Yeah. Right on schedule. If anything, the foundations guys are getting ahead, which is great. It's not really helping our critical path because the next item is how we can precast and steel. We can speed that up any, but it'll be out of the way and less weather impacts and whatnot.
How much have you run into that you hadn't anticipated to this
A
point?
lot of stuff in this area, but existing CTE classrooms. When we got into here, we found electrical that wasn't supposed to be there, fiber. Storm sewer was completely different than what was drawn. We did a lot of field verifications of manholes and all those invert, extrovert, all different. So for pricing, there is more pricing exercises going on that we're handling some of those changes. But overall, that stuff happens. We know it's going to happen, and it hasn't really impacted the schedule much. We're able to kind of keep track of it. So pretty good so far. That's it. Love your guys, yeah, about 2 weeks, they'll probably pull off. I was telling Brandon earlier, so Rittner ended up getting the dirt contract. I did reach out to Tony and then we're gonna have some excess dirt, and he's gonna give a Rittner and then work something out where he's gonna haul some dirt, so people will be involved a little bit, at least for hauling, and then the update footings and Rittner's not on site anymore, obviously that creates spoils, piles of dirt that they don't need. I'll probably engage them to haul those out from the teams. Any questions for me?
Any other questions for Brian? That's good. Appreciate it, Brian.
Brian.
Thank you very much. 5.2, discuss, consider, take any necessary action about the application number 2 submitted by MCL. Brandon.
MCL monthly pay app, reviewed by BVH, reviewed by Key, that's Rusco's company. Both have signed off on the application, the amount of $335,502.
I have just one comment on this one in connection with pay app number 1. We had requested payroll records, which is prescribed in the contract. And this was completely my fault. They sent those shortly after the last meeting. I just looked at them today. Those are still not payroll records, Brian. So they're time cards, but we need actual payroll records, which shows this is exactly how much this person gets paid per hour. These are the benefits. We need payroll reports.
I will respond to your email, Brandon started.
Thank you.
Well,
So again, on this one, I think the contract allows us to go back kind of at any point in time to true that up if it turns out, because what they're doing is they're just charging us a flat hourly rate. And even during the selection process, we specifically said no hidden profit, and I'm not suggesting that that's what they're doing, but the way you confirm that is by seeing all of their records, and it needs to be payroll records. So even with, the potential approval of this, I would also make it subject to getting those payroll records, and I commit to open the document earlier next time.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion to approve pay app number 2
Second.
in the amount of $335,502.31.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? Chris?
Renee,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Di.
Yes.
5.3, discuss, consider, take any necessary action on the quote for handheld radios from First Wireless.
Okay, I discussed it last month about getting more handheld radios that are going to communicate with buses, but also internally, whether it's during the day, during emergencies, during drills, whatever it is. The paperwork that Bob, Stephanie, and First Wireless provided me had just 15 radios listed on it. It showed the unit price for each radio. I was hesitant to use that exact quote because it was 10 of one style, 5 of another, and right now they are a valued commodity. I don't know which radio. We've got months. I'm not going to expect them until the first day of school, but knowing which radio we can get in is going to drive a little bit of what this cost is. I also had Alex double check it because he has some people that he knows on the wholesale side, and Alex felt that going forward with First Wireless was our best option. Price-wise, availability-wise, they're already doing all of our bus communications. So what I have, if you will give me just a second, the 2 types of radios. One of them, the unit price that we're paying is $692. The other one is $748. What the motion says is an amount not to exceed $10,000. The paperwork he has for the 15 radios is 11 something. I don't anticipate getting 15 radios. I anticipate maybe half of that, looking at 8 or 9. But again, availability and cost is going to drive this. I've got to get him rolling to get those radios in. Are you guys comfortable with that?
Brandon, how long will these last? Like, what's the life cycle of these radios?
They should last. I don't know the life cycle, but they hold up very, very well. Because when we put the bus radios in, all the offices, the elementary office and the superintendent office each have a handheld radio, the same thing that we would use. And there have been no issues and no expected issues going forward with them. The only thing that I could see maybe being a hiccup with it is putting it on like Cohen's belt if it gets beat around a little bit just because of his job. But I would hope he would take care of it the best he could. So I can't see it being less than at least 10 years, just because that's the licensing.
And I don't know my handheld radios. Does the technology of those change in the same way in a lot of other technological devices, or is that pretty static?
I would say it's fairly static considering we put them in the buses and they put a 10-year FCC license on it, so.
I take it out of the office.
Yeah.
And walk around.
I would, not knowing handled radios, like you said, I can't see it being less than 10 years in a minimum.
We are getting one to work.
No.
That's what limited quantity means.
I think we need a bold one.
Maybe that would be more effective than the microphones, we could just talk on the radios.
We need to up the quote then. That would be good.
No.
Okay.
It will not exceed 10 grand.
Any more discussion on that? 5.4, discuss, consider, and take any necessary action on offering contract with Jonathan Scroggins for.
Brett, were we going to make a motion
We
to
gotta make a
approve
motion
that?
on that. It's an action item.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what I just. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Chris?
Renee,
Yes.
Brett,
Yep.
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Now on 5.4, discuss, consider, and take any necessary action on offering contract with Jonathan Scroggins for the 2023-24 school year.
Okay, as we talked about before, this math position was really hard to fill. We were lucky to find an experienced teacher who had been teaching math, coming from Texas. His family's relocating. His wife is from Nebraska. He is, we've talked to him. He's been through training. He's going to do a good job. Realizing that he is a transitional certificate, meaning he didn't go through a formal education program. He was actually a Baptist minister, I think, by trade initially, but he's got his certification in Texas. He's taken the math classes necessary to receive that certification. He would be eligible for certification in Nebraska.
How does that transitional certificate work? Like, he can come in and teach, how long does it take for him to become fully certificated, or whatever the terminology is?
So Nebraska is shifting, similar to some other states, in transitional certificates, just because finding teachers is becoming harder and harder, and you're having to find them come from other professions. A transitional certificate is fully endorsed. It is a teaching certificate. It just is not a standard certificate saying, yes, I went through a formal education program. It's a different distinction, but it's not going to limit what he can do.
So he would remain on that? I mean, he can teach indefinitely on a transitional certificate?
Correct.
Okay.
My understanding.
I move to approve offering a contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is that transitional certificate? Is that the cross pay scale, just like everybody else do?
Correct.
Is he qualified for tenure? Would he qualify for tenure on the gate? As long as he,
No.
he would not.
No.
He's-
Actually, anytime somebody would change a district, that starts over. So you have teachers that may have taught 20 or 30 years, yet in our district, they've not achieved tenure. So they have some different evaluation requirements.
What's the difference between provisional and this trans?
Provisional certificate would be somebody that is in the process of completing their course requirements. Transitional, I believe, come from some other, they have a degree, but they come from, a lot of times you'll see it like in shop, maybe somebody worked as a welder and now they're coming in to teach welding. That would be more of a transitional certificate. You've got emergencies, all kinds of distinctions of certificates.
Any other discussion? Chris?
Bob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
And well done, Brandon, by the way. I know we were in a really, really, really tough spot with the math teacher, so Whatever we did, thank goodness.
Yeah, that's something Vernon and Robert managed, so appreciative for sure.
Kudos to Vernon and Robert.
It's both pages, that's very good. Thank you. We will skip 5.5 for the time being, we'll come back to 5.6. Discuss, consider taking any necessary action on superintendent contract for 2023-24 school year and 2024-25 school years. At this time, normally, in the past, we have gone into executive to discuss anything in and around pertaining to Brandon's contract. So I would ask for a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of superintendent's contract negotiation. So, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Mike,
Yes.
Di,
Yes.
Renee. Yes. Brett,
Yep.
Bob,
Yes.
7:18.
Yep, thank you. You bet.
Got very good responsibilities this week.
nope. I told him I'm gonna be his night manager.
They think they're free reign there.
That's what I told him.
Actually, Sawyer runs the